I'm assuming that you didn't read it in Hebrew and Aramaic. Did you read the King James Version, or is there an official Jewish translation?
Well, I did not read it in Hebrew. My Hebrew was enough to get me through a Reform bar mitzvah.
And I'm really shaky on Aramaic.
My Aramaic is very solid, but I didn't do that. I read the Jewish Publication Society's Tanakh, which is a great translation, and then I also read some of the King James and another Christian translation too.
Well, what would have happened if you had read it in the original? Do you think you would have gotten something else out of it?
I would have gotten a lot more out of it. I would have, everyone who talks about this says, I got hundreds of emails saying, how can you read this in English? You can't possibly be getting the real meaning of this. And, my answer is I didn't have the 6 or 10 years it would require to bone up on my biblical Hebrew to get through it. But I'm sure it's much, much richer. And I think one of the things that you do get in translation is that translation gives you words that you have meanings for. And apparently there's lots of words in the Bible that people just don't really exactly know what they mean. And so the translation is very inexact for lots of the Bible. Job in particular is famously hard to decipher.
So we may very well have a distorted view of what the original intent of the writers was?
I think that's almost certainly true. There's a great example of this is there's a moment where the Philistines all get hemorrhoids from the Ark. They steal the Ark of the Covenant, or they capture the Ark of the Covenant, and they get hemorrhoids from having the Ark of the Covenant. And then they return the Ark of the Covenant, and they send 5 gold hemorrhoids as a sort of atonement offering to the Israelites. And you read that, and you're like, what is a gold hemorrhoid? And the new thinking is actually these are phalluses, that this is actually some kind of erectile dysfunction, not hemorrhoids that they're getting. But the language is very confusing, and so no one's really sure.
What was your goal here? You say that it was to find out what happens when an ignorant person actually reads the book on which his religion is based. Now, this is false modesty, or do you mean ignorant only of religion?
Well, I think to be ignorant of the Bible is to be ignorant of a lot of your culture. And I had a Sunday school understanding of the Bible. I'd been bar mitzvahed. I was circumcised. I went to a Christian high school where I took Bible classes. But my understanding of the Bible was really at the level that you get in the popular culture and at the occasional visit to synagogue. And that's a pretty spare understanding of the book. And that the book, when you get it that way, the book is very clear. There are morals that you're given stories with morals in them. God is presented as this very understanding and compassionate God. The heroes are very heroic. And then you actually start to read the book yourself, and you realize that it's nowhere near as simple as what you've been taught, or as what I'd been taught. That the Sunday school Bible doesn't really have much to do with what I call the messy Bible. There's confusion in lots of the stories that you have, for example, in the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob comes down to us as our hero. Jacob is the patriarch. He is Israel. He is the father of my people. Yet, when you look at the story of Jacob and Esau, the twin brother whom he steals the blessing from, Esau is the one you would say is the moral one. Esau is sweet and forgiving and kind, and Jacob is a con artist who is just scheming and tricking his brother out of something. But yet Jacob is our father, so we have to sort of do some work to get an appealing character there. I think that you have in the Bible the most important book to our culture, without a doubt. Much more important than Shakespeare, even more important than you could argue than the Constitution. As important as anything that we read, and yet it's there's a ban. And I felt when I read it for the first time that I'd suddenly taken a veil off my culture, that there were all sorts of things I finally understood that I hadn't understood before. And I think that children, there is a way to teach children this in civilization classes, I think.
But would you want to teach the Quran as well and some of the other holy books around the world?
No, I don't think that's required, because I think it's foundational to us because our civilization is built on the Bible. It's not built on the Quran. If you lived in Saudi Arabia or Jordan, then you would say, yes, teach the Quran, which is the foundational document. For us, the foundational document is the Bible.